Hello, it's always a pleasure to have you join us on this program, AGRICBIOTECH and Food Security, where we highlight the process of biotechnology in all its ramifications for the good of mankind. There are certain concerns raised by individuals and groups against genetically modified organisms, just like in any other concept that many people know not much about. So to allay the fears and concerns of this section of society, the practice of biotech is highly and meticulously regulated, and this applies to the protection, sale and use of biotech products and genetically modified organisms. From every indication, GMOs are documented before the products are available. On this issue of regulatory framework for biotech practice in Nigeria, we shall be speaking to knowledgeable resource person who will give us more reliable information on such regulation, its impact and level of adherence to the rules by practitioners. We will also examine other perspectives of the topic, and to make sense of it all, we will seek to internalize the practice of AGRICBIOTECH in Nigeria. I am Kurian Umayo. Thank you for joining me, and we're going to have a very beautiful intellectual session with my guest today, who happens to be the Director General and CEO of Biosafety Agency, Dr. Yemisi Asagbra. Now, joining me on the program today is the Director General of the National Biosafety Management Agency, in the person of Dr. Mrs. Yemisi Asagbra. Madam, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's begin this program from a definitive point of view. What is the concept of biosafety?
The concept of biosafety is safe handling of biological materials so as not to cause infection or to cause harm to the human, to the animal, and to the plant life.
Now, when you talk about bio items or biomaterials, so what are we referring to?
Basically, you're referring to microorganisms. And in these cases, you're talking about what the impact of some of these microorganisms on the safety of human and environment.
Specifically, we are in the program called AGRICBIOTECH and Food Security. In other words, we're looking for a technology that can provide some level of assistance in making food, come in abundance during harvesting. And a lot has been said about microorganisms. Now that you're dealing with the safety of microorganisms, and biotechnology has a lot to do with the gene editing, it has a lot to do with other processes, biological processes and scientific processes that is difficult for many Nigerians to understand. Hence the need for misconceptions about biotechnology. Now, can we learn from you the components of your responsibility as a safety provider in this environment?
Yes, in answering that question, I'll first of all talk about MBNA. We have been empowered by an act in 2015 that has given us the power to regulate modern biotechnology. And also, by 2019, the act was modified to include biosecurity, gene editing, synthetic biology. And now, currently, when you're talking about agric biotechnology, you can't mention agric biotechnology without the hindsight that, yes, we want to make sure that there's food security. And whilst you were talking, you talked about gene editing. This is the most modern application of biotechnology. And you've also talked about biosafety. So what actually happens is that genes are modified to make sure that probably the crop is insect resistant, the crop is drought tolerant, the crop is salt tolerant in the case of rice, and also to make sure that there is abundance, because by the time you are able to curtail insect infestation, curtail drought where probably the weather is not suitable enough, there's not enough water, the crop is able to adapt. And so some of these happen when you go about introducing some microorganisms that have the ability to help to curtail some of these adverse effects. But then biosafety comes in to be able to actually ascertain that these manipulations, these modifications, in no way is affecting the produce, so that it does not affect the human beings, it does not affect the animals, and also the environment. So these are some of the things we do. So there are promoters, those who carry out this research. They carry it out, and then we as regulators, we are able to look at what has been done scientifically and to check. There's usually the dossier, so we carry out risk assessment to make sure that the proceeds is safe for the human health and for the animal, and for the plant, and for our environment, the biodiversity as a whole.
Now, we have about 3 items that have been BT commercialized. The teller maize is still in the offing, but I had to have cotton and again cowpea that has been perfected. Right. Then considering Nigeria as a big nation where population is actually becoming a challenge in terms of the growth that has no control, and we are working on having food sufficiency. Now, these 3 items cannot go a long way, and we were told that other food crops are on the line. You know, they're working on them, and there's this usual gestation period that must be complied with as part of the protocol before you can come up with something. Then, in your understanding or your calculation, when do you think, considering the protocol that is involved, that some take a number of years, would you consider technology transfer in this connection? There are countries that have perfected in rice, in the other items that we also need in Nigeria. Can we carry out a kind of a transfer of technology?
Yeah, I'll first of all like to talk about the cowpea, PBR cowpea, and the BT cotton, and then the teller maize. You know, there are seeds already available for the PBR cowpea and for the BT cotton. And these are more or less out there because they are seed growers. So there are so many farmers, like we were at a program just last week, and there were so many farmers that were showcased already planting the PBR cowpea. So that, if the seed growers, that is another line that in this technology, when you're talking about agri technology, that are very, very important in the value chain. So by the time we have more seed growers and this is multiplied, then it will be able to reduce the food insecurity. And then now you're talking about some other ones. There are some research already going on cassava, on our rice. They are almost getting to the final stage.
Okay.
Yes. So we believe that definitely Nigeria, the scientists are upping their game and working assiduously to make sure that these agric products are released. And we, as regulators, we are waiting, we are working also to make sure that we give permits so that food security can be in the nation.
What about technology transfer? Can we borrow from Brazil, for instance, who have perfected in rice, BT rice?
Yeah, a lot of some of these research started over there. And we are learning and collaborating with them, and then we have them in here for us to be able to have it.
Should there be a kind of governmental, arrangement to agree on technology transfer before that is possible? All are Nigerian-based research institutes working with maybe their counterparts elsewhere, like Brazil, for instance, to see how we can adopt their own technology, which has gone through protocol that is of a long gestation period.
Yes, like you're talking about the technology transfer. There are certain things, when you're talking of applied biotechnology, you're talking of maybe what you have researched into, like let's say fermentation technology, what you have done to improve the processing within. It's right here within the country. When you're talking about technology transfer, when you're talking about modern agricultural biotechnology, and you're talking about technology transfer, there is a little bit of caveat, there's a little bit of issues you need to put into consideration. The environment in Brazil is different from what we have here. And that is why some of these genetically modified crops, we do something we called environmental studies, and then we have what we call environmental release. So all this has to, you need to bring about some parameters. So it's not like the normal easy technology transfer. So that's the difference. That one is more sensitive because there could be mutation, there could be anything. So that one is not easily transferred just like that. Unlike the normal kind
Technology of I ask the question because we are told that technology is ubiquitous, that whatever result, or science, for instance, or a result you have here is something elsewhere across the globe. Because if it's not so, then it's not scientific anymore. That's why my mind came to the issue of acquiring a technology that has been tested and trusted.
Yeah, that one you are talking about is probably applicable when you're talking about analysis. Because you have the ISO 17025 analysis that you carry out, whereby you have your analysis in China. You are analyzing this grain in China. You're analyzing it in the United States, you're analyzing it in Nigeria, you're analyzing it in South Africa, and you should get the same result. Because that one, even, you are working under standard temperature, pressure, humidity, and everything. So you are already creating that particular atmosphere suitable for the analysis. So it should be the same elsewhere. But when you're talking of growing, when you're talking of it's a different ball game. So you now have to adapt it.
So that's standard for your own environment. Oh, great. All right, now you are watching AGRICBIOTECH and Food Security. We are going to have a short break now. When we return, we will continue our conversation with Dr. Mrs. Agnes Asagbra, the Director General of the National Biosafety Management Agency. Stay with us. All right, you're welcome back, and thank you for staying with us up to this moment. We're still with Dr. Mrs. Asagbra. We are talking about biosafety measures in Nigeria. We want to be sure that all the food items that will come out from biotechnology are well regulated, and that's why we are here today with Dr. Mrs. Asagbra. Madam, going further, how safe is biotech foods? In your estimation, since you're involved in processing, you're involved in all manner of dissecting analysis that usually would take place in a scientific environment. So how safe is the crops already approved now, like cowpea, cotton, and telemaize?
Yes, we are regulators, I'll keep saying that. And with all the data, with all we have in our hands, the dossier, everything of how step by step these crops have been modified. We have seen them, we've carried out risk assessment. We have the National Biosafety Committee comprising of experts from different fields. So those who are specifically involved in all this kind of crops come. We have the National Biosafety Committee, we have the National Biosafety Technical Committee. All these will come together. We'll see all that is in the dossier, all the experiments, everything, and they carry out risk assessment. And we have found out that these three are safe. Yes.
Okay, now, do you have some of your staff who are directly involved with the process of BT crops in Nigeria? For instance, you have some of your personnel working with research institutes across Nigeria for this purpose, especially those research institutes that have to do with agriculture.
We're not involved in the process. We are regulators. So we check their protocols, their procedures, their ways to carry out agric modern.
Which means your personnel should be planted in those institutes while they're doing it. Is that what you do, or period?
No. Periodic. Yeah. We do surveillance. We do periodic.
Surveillance. Yeah.
Yes. We are not involved in the laboratory work or doing the gene modification. No, that is not our role. We are not promoters. We are not the ones doing it. We regulate to make sure that, are you doing this thing right?
The right way. Yeah.
Yes. Because if you are not doing it, then with our hammer, our sledgehammer is there, and they would have to stop.
Do you have an enforcement power?
Yes, we have a department called the Biosafety Enforcement Department. We have it there. So they normally go out on surveillance, and then due to protocols, there is a certain time that they have to call us that, okay, we are getting to this stage of our research. You need to come and check. So we do those ones when we are called to check, and we also do on on the spot.
Yes.
Yes, we do that also. And then those who do get permits, we also follow them up, because we have the authority to give those who import some of these GM grains into the country. We have the authority to give them the permit. Once we do that, other agencies that work with us, they quarantine, they are there, they monitor and see that, okay, we have given them this permit, is it so? And they also carry out their own necessary analysis. So the country is such well structured to make sure that GMOs, GM foods, GM feeds are not the ones that can just come in and affect the human beings in this country. And another good thing that we have been able to do quite recently with customs, there's a software so that anytime any grain is coming into the country or feeds from any of these countries that are known to be in GM, yes.
Crops, yes.
So we are on that platform, we are alerted, and we can go take samples and know that, okay, this, is it safe for the human health, for the plant, for the animal, and for our environment.
So which means you have your own laboratory as well, where you can do your own analysis.
Yes, we do, as a confirmatory one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we have other laboratories that need to do the analysis, because it's like we cannot be the one just taking sample and say, oh, it is this, it is that, because it could be termed that, are we biased, are we telling the truth? So we have these labs, and then we also are able to confirm and say, okay, it is so, it is not.
Now, I've also interviewed a number of professionals, in the course of this TV series, and I got to learn that there are items in Nigeria. There are, GM produce or products, as the case may be, like cornflakes, like other items that have been, processed. But they're all born out of BT corn, or BT soybean, or BT. There are eatables, that come from all these items. There are BT, from origin and so on. Are you involved in, carrying out a biosafety work on finished produce that come into the country for consumption, most of which are found in our superstores?
Yes, we are involved. And we're doing the bit we can, but we're still going to up our game on it, because our borders are so porous. So there's a lot we're still there. There are some machineries on ground that we want to use to make sure that we are more effective in this line.
Do you work together with NAFDAC in any way, collaboratively? I mean,
yes, we do. We do.
Because when we had the COVID-19 era, we talked about vaccines and all that. And we know that such vaccine is a product of, biotechnology. And how much of involvement were you with NAFDAC then when we were trying to ascertain the efficacy of the vaccines?
No.
But in terms of producing Nigeria's own vaccine, were you involved in monitoring or providing safety for it?
Not the medical side, no. Okay. NCDC is more
concerned in that one. Okay.
Yes.
Now, what are the challenges that you have carrying out your responsibility as the helmsman, or rather the chief executive of National Biosafety Management Agency? Are there challenges that you have that are inhibiting, your efforts to carry out a good biosafety responsibilities with respect to agricultural biotech?
Yeah, we have our challenges. There are always two sides to a coin. we are regulators. We make sure that we find out what exactly is in that crop and make sure that it is safe for our populace. We do all that we ought to do as regulators. But then we have some antis who feel this is that, how can it be? So that's one major challenge, the antis. And that is why, you asked about the lab. We have those who check and then we check also, so that it is not just us involved in
assuming, no assumptions.
So we are able to make sure it's balanced, and we don't do it alone. We get experts from all over the country. Even if there's need, we could go outside and get the information. So those are some of it. And then, like I said earlier, our borders are so porous, but then with the collaboration with the Nigerian customs and this software that they will, it's going to help us, but then we still have need for that. And another thing is funds, because we need to actually go out there to sensitize people on knowing more about what biosafety, biosecurity is all about. So those are some of the challenges that we do have. But we have a good, our workforce.
Yes.
Our workforce, they are top notch. Well trained, but we still need more training, and they're good at their job.
All right. We've been listening to Dr. Mrs. Agnes Asagbra, the Director General of the National Biosafety Management Agency. We've been speaking on the safety that the agency is providing in terms of agricultural biotechnology. Thank you, Madam, for sharing your thoughts with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, we have been properly educated on the philosophy behind a regulatory arrangement to guide the practice of agric-biotechnology. It's a global ideology that must be domesticated in countries where biotech provides sustainable facilitation of food security. Through this program, we ask for that to happen in Nigeria. That's our show for today. We thank you for watching. We'll return again with a fresh edition next week. I am Kyrian Umayo. See you again.